Sarah Raughley is an author, writer, and academic. While currently teaching at Lakehead University, she is also a freelance columnist and emerging young adult author whose novels and short stories are published around the world. Her most recent work is The Bones of Ruin, about an African tightrope dancer facing the apocalypse in the 19th century. Sarah, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Raleigh. And yeah, the Bones of Ruin, I like to sort of see it as 19th century supernatural Hunger Games. It repopulates Victorian London with actual people of color, which I think is so needed. And in this book, there's a secret society of Europe's elites that believe that the apocalypse is coming and they're getting ready to colonize a new world. But in order to sort of think about, to decide amongst themselves who will be the leader of the new world, they decide to hold this tournament. And so each sort of member of the committee of the group has their own group of superpowered heroes that are kind of fighting to the death, and it's really cool. So definitely take a look. And I'm going to read from the prologue. So, before the cataclysm, October 1st, 1884, 925 days since the Spring Day Massacre. A second set of knocks on the front door once again interrupted Adam Temple's very important business. All right, Adam muttered, closing his hooded eyes as he stayed his hand. Ever the persistent one, that woman. But it was no more than a minor annoyance. With the rain beating the arched windows and the wind howling in the darkness outside, providing shelter to his esteemed visitor came first. It's what a gentleman would do, even in this situation. Indeed, he'd given his servants the night off, so the door was his to get. Straightening up, he casually tossed his bloody knife onto the mantel of the roaring cast-iron fireplace. He looked fondly upon the golden-framed portrait of his mother, the Baroness, hanging above it. She had been a puritanical woman, lovely and stoic, her braided brown hair muted by canvas oils. Her authoritarian gaze aimed daggers at him. Now, don't look at me like that, Mother, he thought with a little grin before heading out to the foyer. The rapping on the door made the crystals of the chandelier above him jingle brightly like bells, their light dancing along the dark carmine walls. To his left, a clay bust of his father, John Temple, cowered in the corner behind the twisting wooden staircase, but Adam spared no time for it. He would return to him later. The rapping had evolved into a frenzied pounding. How typical of Madame. Don't be so impatient, Violet, he whispered as his hand reached for the knob. The open door revealed a beautiful woman standing in the granite threshold of his family manor, a woman who tried very hard the moment she caught sight of his blue eyes to transform her frustrated scowl into a pleasant, welcoming smile. Madame Violet Belrose was the very vision of a lady. Not a splash of rain had touched her long black gloves, nor her burgundy overdress, the same color as her gathered-up hair, because her servant, a dreadful-looking man soaked from head to toe, with the expression and pallor of a corpse, held up a black umbrella to keep her dry. Her skirt fell straight at the front, but draped elaborately at the back, billowing majestically below the waist as she crossed the doorway. Well, she said, her own pearl-colored parasol, an unopened decoration in her hands. Isn't it always lovely to visit Yorkshire at night? Her French accent was as solid as the pearls draped around her neck. She turned to her servant. Pierre, you'll wait outside, won't you? She didn't wait for an answer before she slammed the door in the wet man's face. The wind and rain raged on behind it. And now they were alone. My, the weather is just terrible. She inched closer to him, her boots crisp against the marble. Feels like the end of days, doesn't it? Adam wasn't surprised when her slender fingers found his cheek sooner than he could blink, caressing his jawline up to his admittedly very unkempt black hair. The first time he'd met her 7 years ago, his father had entertained her in his manner. Anna was 14 at the time, home from Eton, and she more than a decade older, but he could feel the illicit hunger in her eyes for him even then, as sure as he could now. It wasn't a particularly pleasant experience or an unpleasant one. Her touch never shook his heart one way or another. Dealing with Madame Belrose in any capacity required care and the utmost precaution. She was one of the more intelligent members of the committee, after all. And while all of the members could brag of wealth, power, and an impressive body count, not all could boast of superior intellect. When in the presence of Madame Belrose, it was imperative that he be in complete control of himself. It was balancing on the edge of a knife. My Adam, you only grow more handsome every time I see you. She rested her finger under her red lips, as it were the sword of Damocles dangling above his head, her thumb caressing her pointed chin in amusement. Beautiful balanced features, delicate and fairy-like, soft like a woman's, and yet so masculine in its shape. She admired him like a painting that she could never have, no matter how many times she asked, and she had asked many times. Though your hair could use a bit of a comb, young man, she added in a scolding tone unsuited to her. He could feel her fingers grazing his scalp as she ran them through his hair. Despite that little oversight, I'm sure any young British lady would just die to be your wife. If we hadn't killed your father, I'm sure he would have set up an arrangement immediately. Scoffing, Adam stepped away from her, widening the distance between them to a more comfortable degree. In my life, my father was never interested in such things. He could barely stand me. He certainly didn't trust me. I suppose he was right in both regards. As if she'd suddenly grown bored of his beauty, she peeked into the living room. Her blue eyes glinted dangerously, and certainly not because of the new neoclassical furniture he'd just brought to the estate. She was used to the expense of things. She'd inherited many of her family's part in the slave trade, the abolition of which, she always maintained, was one of France's biggest mistakes. Why, that monsieur, might he be? With a gentlemanly sweep of his arm, Adam gestured for the madame to enter first. You are a loyal boy, aren't you? As loyal as the committee needs me to be. A smart boy, too. Madame Belrose scurried into the living room. It was a spacious room where his family used to spend much of their time together when all were alive. The parlor in the east wing was another close favorite, a particular joy for his Uncle Byron, now sadly committed. But by the sudden drop of her long face, Adam knew the carnage was clearly too contained for her taste. Golden framed portraits of the Temple family lined the floral walls and mocked her with their spotlessness. Along with his mother, sandwiched between two golden light fixtures above the fireplace, there was his cherubic little brother and beloved older sister, his grandfather, and a space where his father's portrait used to be, a painting that now lay discarded in a closet somewhere, gathering dust. On one side of the fireplace, a bust of Michelangelo's David, bloodless, with not even a scratch upon it, and on the other, a low mahogany rocking chair next to a handcrafted gold-trimmed monopodial table, carvings telling ghoulish stories along its single leg, clean. No broken mirror, no intestines draped across the piano. Adam had kept the carnage to a minimum. The only blood in sight dripped from the chest, arms, and lips of the graying middle-aged man tied to a chair in the center of the living room and collected in a respectable crimson pool on the earth-toned Persian rug. Adam was never one for a mess, but Madame Belrose had a taste for the macabre. So he did what he could for her within reason. He picked the bloody knife back up off the mantel. And I'll leave it there. So